My name is Jackie Knable. I'm the Senior Vice President of Human Resources for Meridian Behavioral Healthcare. I have a master's in Human Resource Management, and I'm a senior professional in Human Resources certified. Our main focus at that time was to have a position-based software for HR, and there was nobody else out there who had that position-based. Everything else was employee-based, and our CEO felt like that was a huge benefit because everything focuses around the position, and people come and go, but the positions remain fairly stable, and we felt like we would have more control over that portion of our overhead. With Datus, the recruiting portion is fully integrated. It's not a separate system, so that it all works seamlessly together, and we can drop people from, once we select them to hire them, we can drop them into the HR system and the payroll system, which is also fully integrated. And that was a key area for me. I didn't want to even look at a program unless it did have an integrated recruiting system, applicant tracking. We have tremendous requirements to government agencies as far as tracking our applicants. So we have to have a solid system in place where we can control and monitor and report on who comes through the system. And with the recruiting system, we are able to allow the managers to see. We at one time we were doing paper resumes that we had to distribute, and now they have access to who applies to their positions. The system allows us to manage paperwork, it allows us to manage documents, and a lot of the, starting with the applicant, they are keying their own information into the system initially. They're able to attach their documentation to the system, and this is how all prospective applicants have to apply, is through the system. We don't accept any paper resumes or applications. So everybody applies through Datus, so every candidate is accounted for. And then once they are moving from an applicant as a new employee, we can simply transfer them over. We're able to attach any documents that we feel are relevant to that process, or we do online acknowledgments for many of our new hire documents now. So there's much less paper that's required for us to handle back and forth between the applicant, the new hire, and the new employee. And then as we go through, everything's handled, uploaded into the system and stored. So it's available to the people who have the need to know. Saves a lot of filing time, a lot of keying time. We used to have to key in every single applicant into a tracking system. We used to have to account for every paper resume, paper application. All of that's attached now, so there's no tracking. If CCP walks in and wants to see what we've been doing, we're able to produce that information fairly easily. So it's a huge advantage that way. As a new employee onboards, we set them up in the system. We use the time clocks around the center, as well as each employee's computer can be a time clock, and they key in and out their time. They transfer their time to appropriate departments. We've totally eliminated paper timesheets for any department, and we're much better able to account for the cost of that payroll to the appropriate department or program that employee's working in. And many split their time amongst several, and they're able to easily transfer over to that particular department. So financially, it's much more accurate as far as where the payroll costs are charged. As far as the benefits enrollment go, we recently implemented the Enrollment Wizard, that new employees have that ability to go in and self-enroll in the benefits through the computer, and it eliminates the need for us to collect all that benefit paperwork that we used to have to collect. The information's already entered into the system so that the payroll deductions start with that very little input on our part other than the approvals. And we can control over who sees what when, so that only eligible employees have access to that enrollment wizard and at the appropriate time. So we don't have to worry about we've lost track of somebody and we didn't get them enrolled during the open enrollment window that they had as a new hire. We haven't overlooked anybody. It's really cut down on the amount of labor that we've had to put into benefits management. And then we have the information is transmitted to the various benefit companies so that we no longer have to go and log into their systems and key in manually all of that enrollment information. Everything's handled through the system and through transfers. So it reduces the opportunity for errors, keying errors. When you're keying in one employee's benefit information manually, for every benefit program you have, there's an opportunity for keying error or many keying errors, whether it's the amount, the type of benefit they're selecting, the name, social security number, all of that's transmitted now electronically. So we're seeing much fewer errors than we had experienced before. When we first implemented Datus and the whole idea of self-serve, and that both the managers and the employees would be keying in using the system, it was funny because at first the managers were kind of in an uproar. Oh, HR is just trying to push off the work onto us, and so now we're going to have to do HR's job too, and our job's already hard enough. But it took them probably less than 3 weeks to start to see the benefits of that. They didn't have to wait for things to process through HR or through payroll. They could see changes go through very rapidly, changes for pay raises, changes for transfers, approvals to fill positions. All of those move very seamlessly through the system now, and so they're able to see those things much quicker, and they love the system. And the staff, we had quite a few people who were not all that computer literate when we made the original transition, but because of the electronic medical health records, everybody's had to become more computer literate anyways, and this was a good transition for them, as they do have to submit for every day off they take through the system. They can go in and view all their benefits, they can print their own check stubs, they can make their address changes themselves. So I've never heard a single employee complain about the system. They love it. They love the access to it all. It's cut down on a lot of work for us. We're not printing out all the W-2s at the end of the year. We're not constantly replacing check stubs that they need. They can do all that themselves now. So they get faster service, and we're freed up to do other more important things. With the entire recruiting system and applicant tracking, they're able to, at any time when they have available time, to call up their candidates. They don't have to be at the office. Everything can be accessed anytime they have a computer with internet access. As a manager, they can see all their positions, all their candidates that, as a company, we've decided they can see in what part of the process, rather than having to hack around a whole lot of paperwork. They can call up that person's application, their resume, everything right online, so they can fit that into their work schedule. We are able to look at any time at the entire company's vacancies, where the vacancies are, which of our revenue producing positions are vacant, and what's that costing us. So there's a lot of information available to all levels of management 24/7. So it really helps us focus our recruiting effort and streamline the manager's time for that process. All of our performance appraisals are currently uploaded online, where the employee can see them, the manager can see them. We used to get a lot of requests constantly throughout the year. I need Joey's last performance appraisal, which meant we had to go pull the hard file, make copies, and then send it to the manager, and they had to wait till they received it, or they had to have access to a fax machine. Everything, including performance appraisals, corrective actions, are readily available to them. The employee can see all of their corrective actions at any time. They're all posted. When a manager sits down to evaluate that employee, they can call up those corrective actions and see them on the system, so that they can actually do a performance appraisal based on the entire year's performance as opposed to just what's in recent memory. As far as the credentials go on our staff, we key in all of their required credentials for each position. We actually have many of the required credentials set up into a position, so if we can't enter that information into the system, we can't put that person into that position. A nurse's license, an RN license, is required for an RN position, otherwise you can't place that person into that position. It tracks the date that the license expires, so we can run reports that notify us when their licenses need to be renewed. And we can easily check at any time what staff have what credentials. So when we're looking at moving staff to cover an immediate need, especially on the org chart, we can see what their credentials are very easily. I think as far as the functionality goes, the system is very intuitive. I've implemented several HRIS systems in the past, and many of them are very complicated. They take weeks of training for both who's setting them up prior to designing the structure, and then just to train everybody how to use it can take weeks. This took very, very little time in comparison, and we were able, our first payroll went flawlessly, which I've not had during any implementation. We actually, I think, signed the paperwork and made the decision to go forward with Datus in February. We ran our first payroll the end of June. So from the very beginning, before we even started in February through June, we were functional. Now it took us a little bit longer to implement, all the bells and whistles, but not near what I've experienced in the past with other processes. So the benefits started immediately. We were able to take a half-time position out of payroll because of the speed to which we were able to process the payroll for 550 staff compared to what we were experiencing prior to that. We have much fewer errors as far as payroll goes, and they're usually related to an employee error where somebody forgot to clock in or out, or a manager changed somebody's time inappropriately. There are no system errors that we're dealing with payroll that are mentioned, that are there. It's such a flawless process now. It just astounds me on how fast we can get payroll processed. The fact that Datus has chosen to focus on our industry, they see our needs as priorities, whereas some of the other companies I've dealt with, we have some unique needs as far as credentialing is much broader. We have categories that we have to be able to put people into and run reports throughout the year on. So we're able to put in those levels that I think some of the other companies, we didn't have the capabilities before, because it's such a unique industry and has a lot of governmental oversight, and the reporting requirements are so different than your normal for-profit business, that Datus really does understand that we have different priorities maybe than a lot of the other companies that are out there that would utilize a HRIS system. So I see it as a big advantage. I first worked with Datus back in 2001 in a different industry at that time, when in fact all they did back then was payroll. And it was funny because my CEO came to me with a brochure that says, these people have position-based HRIS system. You need to talk to them. And I looked at the brochure and I said, I know these people. I used to work with them. And it was amazing to me that how many of the same people that I worked with at the time were still there. They truly do put the customer first. I always enjoyed working with them back then. I felt like they cared about their customers. They cared about what our needs were. They were very responsive. And it was so nice to be able to see, to talk to the same people that I had dealt with, more than a decade prior, and to see how they had grown the company and that they had expanded their service line, but yet the commitment to the customer support was still the same. And that was the main reason I was looking for a new system, aside from our CEO's desire to have a position-based system, was I was completely unhappy with the customer support we had received for many years from the company we had been using. And so it was almost like coming home to a company and still being able to fill all of my needs for an entire HRIS system, as opposed to just the payroll that I had worked with before. But I really enjoy the people I deal with there, and I think they care about their customers.